Okay, and we're live. Um, I hope everybody is doing well today. Um, we've been to Nigeria, we've been to the US, we've spoken to people around the world, and today we're coming back to London, where I am. So, welcome everybody to the Rise of the Orisha interviews, where I'm going to be talking to people who are, hello, Lucy. Well, I'm going to be talking to people who are experts in African spirituality. As I sort of progress and make more films within the Rise of the Orisha universe, I'm talking to people who just have a lot of information and who I'm really interested in just learning from. So today I'm going to be speaking to Dalian, who is a member of, or who is a founder of the documentary series Ancestral Voices. So I'm just waiting for him to come up right now. Um, so yeah, Dalian is part of Ancestral Voices, a founder of Ancestral Voices. I'm going to bring him up right now, and Ancestral Voices have done a number of documentaries about African spirituality, and they also have done online courses, the first online course on African spirituality. So they talk about it from a range of perspectives, and I'm really interested in hearing what Dalian's got to say. Are you there, sir?
Yes, I am. I
Awesome.
saw my video out because I can't seem to see myself. Not
Okay.
sure why. Can you see me?
I can't see you, but I can hear you. I can hear you loud and clear. Got a great radio voice. Hello? Okay. Well, we're still waiting for him to come up. So, yeah, darling, Ancestral Voices, I think we met like about 4 or 5 years ago. There you are. I can see you now.
Yeah, perfect.
Awesome.
So,
So how long ago did we meet? Like it was time ago, wasn't it?
yeah, about 8 years ago, I would think thereabouts.
Oh,
When did you release The Rise of the Orisha, the very first kind of pilot?
the first one. Oh
Do
yeah.
you,
Uh, that must have been 6 years ago. So I think it was about
oh,
six.
okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Is that far back even you are struggling to remember?
Yeah, but it's good to see, we're still sort of
Yeah,
like moving in this path and doing, the work essentially. So
as we have to. If we don't do it, who's gonna do it? So yeah.
that's true. Yeah, 100%. So I mean, I was just giving you a breakdown. I was giving people an
Mhm.
introduction into Ancestral Voices, but
Yeah.
it's always best to come straight from the horse's mouth. So could you give us a breakdown on who Ancestral Voices are and why the work you do is so important?
Absolutely. Yeah. So my name is Dalian Adofo. I'm one of the co-directors, co-founders of Ancestral Voices, which is an educational initiative I set up with my wife, Verona Spence. And Ancestral Voices came about really to fill the gap where African spiritual concepts and ideas seem absent from mainstream discussions. You can have your Buddhism, you can have your Hinduism, Zainism, Zoroastrianism, you name it. Everyone's kind of cultural, spiritual lineage is given some space for discussions, but then none for the African. Whenever you bring up African spiritual thought, the first suggestions you're gonna get is either it's some type of negative witchcraft, demon worship. The associations are very negative. So Ancestral Voices came about as an initiative to redress these type of negative, unfounded really, stigma and propaganda that has been used to stigmatize these traditions for so long. Ancestral Voices' main aim is to bring back that conversation in a accurate manner where we hear it from the horse's mouth. Be it let the African have the opportunity to define what their own traditions and cultural concepts actually mean, rather than having it defined by a colonial missionary or an imam from Islam, where, as historically shows, these systems of religious worship have treated African spirituality with nothing but disdain. So Ancestral Voices is the response to that, to bring back this knowledge that Africans can actually find useful purposes or sources in which to live. So that's what African spirituality does for the individual that is a practitioner of it. So 10 years ago, we came out with our first documentary, Esoteric African Knowledge, which really broke down how African spiritual systems were systematically disadvantaged, how they were systematically and deliberately set up with false information, so that even today we still struggle with concepts within African spirituality. So that was the first film that we put out in 2010. And then 7 years later, in 2016, we published the results of our findings, because the second film is called Spirit is Eternal. And that took roughly about 5 to 7 years to make. We had to travel from South Africa to Brazil to Haiti, because the second film, what it does is it correlates where all these spiritual systems, what they have in common, to show that these systems actually come from a particular or a common source. So whereas we might be able to say, we have all these different tribes of Africa and they're so different, what we see in their spiritual expressions is that these traditions come from a singular source, if you will. And that even informs history, or the way we think about history and how the origins of humanity developed. We're always given this idea that there are these separate tribes who then do their own thing or move about. But if this is how humanity developed, we shouldn't have this high degree of commonality between these systems. So in 2017, we released the sequel, which was Spirit is Eternal, and that looks at African spiritual systems in a systematic way, yes, to show the different elements that make up these systems, and present that information forward. So 10 years to now, we have 2 documentary films, Ancestral Voices, Esoteric African Knowledge, Ancestral Voices, Spirit is Eternal, and then we also have a published book of all our findings. And since then, we have also expanded it into a range of online courses, because spirituality is not just an intellectual exercise. It's a liberty. It's something that you live, and you live according to certain principles that we find in the practice. So that's a basic sum up of what Ancestral Voices is, when it started, who's involved, and how we came to be. So yeah,
amazing.
That's my short intro. Yeah.
Thank you. That was very succinct. You mentioned just now about how African spirituality was essentially demonized, and people were made to fear it. Could you just give a sort of breakdown on a few of the ways that your research showed that it was demonized, and how this was achieved?
Okay, well, one of the main, should we say, tools of this disinformation was to make it a mainstay that Africans didn't have a concept of God, and that they basically worship their ancestors. So you will find that usually, even now, when most people refer to African spiritual systems, they'll call it ancestral worship. There is no African system where people worship their ancestors. People have a high degree of respect for the ancestors, in the same sense that you would have a high degree of respect for someone who's above your station or is an elder to you. Okay, we have this letter from King Leopold of Belgium, who stated quite clearly to the missionaries that, don't go and think you're going to teach these people about God, because they know what this concept of God involves. We are familiar. We weren't as barbaric as they wrote in their history. So this is like one of the main things, deliberately using misunderstandings to further separate Africans from this essential aspect to their culture. So that's one of the first things, spreading misinformation. First one being ancestral worship. Then the second one was, and the main important one, because you see, African spirituality deals with liberty that connects with nature. It doesn't separate itself from nature, because it's from nature that we draw life. It's from nature that we get food. It's from nature that we can heal our bodies. It's actually nature that sustains our very existence. You know, this air that we breathe, yourself and myself, if we were to hold our noses for however long and not breathe for say 5 to 10 minutes, you'll be dead. So what actually sustains you is nature. And this is basically the essential aspect underneath African spirituality, living with natural cycles, understanding them, having a respect for them, and living in accordance with some of its principles. So one of the other things was to say that, oh, Africans' understandings of these natural cycles were demon worship. So, you know, because they could not find areas where this demon worship, in a sense, could be, should we say, verified, they started picking some of the natural forces and claiming these were the same as, let's say, the Satan or the devil or Lucifer that you will find in Abrahamic religions. But the reality is there is no Satan or devil in any African spiritual tradition. Yes, we have to understand this Satan or Shaitan or whatever the Abrahamics call it in a very particular way. This Satan entity is supposed to be an angel that God cast down from heaven, and then he has his own space called hell, and then he can trick people against this supreme God's will. You will never find such an entity in any African tradition. Absolutely, you can find forces which may not have necessarily positive attributes to them, but there is no devil. So, for instance, in the Yoruba, they have the force called Eshu, and Eshu is a very teaching energy. Yes, it comes to give you lessons, and these lessons you will not always learn them in the easiest possible way. You will sometimes have to learn through pain. Learning a lesson is not always a happy moment. You understand? It's so long as that message is learned. So they tried to link Eshu to Satan, and even a few years ago, the Yoruba of Nigeria build up a big campaign stating Eshu is not Satan. Yes, so we're still living with this colonial hangover, really. Yes, in the Akan system, they picked this mythical being called Sasabonsam, and then they said that is Satan. Yes, in the Igbo,
sorry.
Yes, Sasabonsam, okay. And the Sasabonsam is like a mythical creature from the forest. You know, in a sense, some of these ideas are there to prevent, let's say, a child who will be curious to go into the forest and then get lost, and then they'll be dead. So if you have, I guess, some of these stories that helps social cohesion in a particular way, it doesn't necessarily mean this is a known fact. Do you understand? But then they pick these particular elements. So even in the Igbo, they have this entity very similar to Eshu called Ekwensu, I believe. And again, they just mapped this entity straight onto Satan, even though they have no direct correlation. So what we can see essentially is that they created a disinformation campaign to aid Africans to actually reject their own traditions. Yeah, so these are only like two of the main ones that people are familiar with. There are others, but you know, I think those two will do us well, unless obviously you want us to expand some more.
Yeah, no, that was very, very clear and very beautifully put. I wanted to add on from there in terms of your own experience promoting Ancestral Voices and promoting African spirituality. What has been some of the experiences that you've had in terms of, you know, some of the people who are accepting it, or some of the pushback that you may have had as well?
Yeah, well, you know, my background is in education, so we have this thing called the feedback sandwich. You can never start from the negative. Let's start with the positive, and then it buffers up to get to the should we say the juicy part of the sandwich. Yeah. So the positives is people have been always receptive. People have been very, in a sense, even surprised that we would take up such a controversial subject. It shouldn't be controversial because everyone, your culture is your culture. This is where you come from, you know. But it's considered controversial just because of the lies and misinformation that is centuries old. So right from the beginning, we were praised for our courage and our dedication to seeing it through. And the fact that we saw it through for at least 6-7 years, managed with the help of our brilliant fan base as well, who came to support us, because the first film, we had to use our own personal funds. This is my own savings, my wife's savings, to put that film together. We had to travel to Ghana, we had to travel to Egypt, and then we had to conduct all these interviews in England. And all this came from our own direct pocket. So we had to make a sacrifice. And again, you know, so early in that journey, perhaps we didn't even understand some of these elements. But making sacrifices is essential in African spiritual concepts. If there's something you want, you have to sacrifice. And when I use that word sacrifice, it means many things, because there are many ways of sacrificing. Yeah. In this case, I had to sacrifice my own money that we would be saving for a rainy day. But then the importance of it cannot be monetized. So we had to put that sacrifice there, and yeah, it lifted off because there was an audience that were hungry for it. You know, an audience that realized that, hey, in all these stories, nobody's talking about our ancestors. Nobody's talking about what they've contributed to world history, even though we find their ideas in just about every subject knowledge or subject discipline there is. You know, so that in itself was the first positivity that we got. People encouraged us. So when we got to the second film, and we had to show, because it was important for us to show that none of these systems exist independently of each other. All these systems work together because they are built on certain solid tenets. Yes, and these tenets is where we see their unity. So by the time we got to the second one, the places we had to go, we couldn't afford it. So we put out a GoFundMe campaign, and people donated some, which assisted us. And then we went forward and completed the second one. So it's always been praiseworthy. The fact that our work is now getting into some universities as well has been a good, should we say, add-on to it. In terms of the negatives, you know, you will always get negatives. And the sad thing is, this negativity is only based on ignorance. So obviously, initially, it used to affect us, because when we first set up our Facebook page, I remember, we used to get trolled all the time. But then obviously things change. The only constant in life is change. So whereas perhaps maybe there was a lot of resistance, over time you can see a change. Like, for instance, when we first created our first documentary, there was hardly anybody speaking on this topic. Then, you know, as we were progressing through the journey, we saw people like yourself who'd also gone back and were exploring the same topics via film. Yes, there was another film outlet in the States. They created a film called Orinu. There's been so many films now exploring African spiritual systems. There's even the lady from Southern Africa who did one about water deities. There's been so many. So we can see that the tide has changed. People are not just willing to say, oh, okay, just because some missionary in whichever century wrote this, whatever piece of their own personal objective, that's how we define ourselves. Do you understand? So that negativity has always been there. But the one moment where it kind of really, it was a bit of a funny moment. We went to the British Film Institute, and there was a double billing. It was put together by Tony Warner of Black History Walks. The film program is called African Odysseys. You might be aware of it. Yeah. And he did a double billing with a film about Fela and then our film. And when our film started showing, half of the auditorium left the room. Seriously? Yeah, I was standing outside. I had a Nigerian brother come up to me, very full of angst is the best way I can describe it, asking me, why did we feel to make such a film? What is the point of this film? Yes, but then in the next instance, when the Fela film was showing, they were there busy cheering Fela. And in this fella film, you could see before he even went on stage, he had a babalawo come to speak to him and draw some markings on his face. So all of that could be, in a sense, ignored because fella has become, I guess, a pop icon. Yes. So we can see that people really what they have, they're struggling with their own selves. And that what they're struggling with can get projected onto us. So it becomes a thing of, well, you're not really angry at me. You're just angry at yourself because you're stuck. You're stuck in a place where you do not want to expand your understanding of the world. So I'm not going to accept your negativity. You know, you can keep it and stay with it. And yeah. So there are all these type of instances. But again, and it's not even in hindsight, because even in that moment, I just thought, wow, why would another African brother come and ask me such a silly question, really? The question makes no sense. What do you mean? Why do I feel the need to do such a fail? As if I need to beg someone's permission to have my own creative expression, you know? So yeah, we've had a bit of both. But as of now, it's a lot more positive because, again, a lot more people are now willing to step beyond the colonial misinformation. This is why we have all these decolonized education, decolonize this, decolonize that. Times have changed. The energies are changed. The time is here now for people to step into their own self. Yeah. So a bit of both. A bit of both.
Now, firstly, man, I want to say congratulations and props to you for just being in the game for so long. Not even the game, doing what you do for so long and sticking with it. And, you know, obviously you're seeing, you know, as one of the people who started it, the pioneers, like where it's going. So major props for that. It's interesting what you said, because I had a similar experience with my film where someone watched the film, and these were two sort of elderly Nigerian women. They watched my film and they turned to me and they said, this looks really nice. This is really nice, but it's very diabolical. And I was like, what? But then, but then on the same hand, there are elements of Nigerian culture which they would, you know, sort of profess to me, like eating bitter cola or so forth. So do you think that part of the problem with this has been the marketing behind African spirituality? Is it more of, because are we practicing African spirituality in ways that we don't really understand, but it's just the marketing which is you know, is giving it, for instance, the bad name, the you know, the negativity that people have ascribed to it?
Yeah, well, it's an interesting point that you've brought up, you know, Nosa, and it speaks to many levels, yes, because you see, you've mentioned a very important point there, where the same woman will understand the essence of why bitter cola or what even plays in the traditions, but then the concept of what this highest expression of everything, which we will call the creator, because we can't use the word God, because the word God has a kind of trademark of it being some kind of white man living in a white space. So we try not to use that word. So they might profess to the bitter cola because they understand it. You can use bitter cola within ritual spaces as well as in, if you want to call it, social spaces. So long as they do not see, or rather they do not internalize that they're using this bitter cola in a religious way, this is where the conflict comes in. So long as they do not see it in a religious use, then it's fine. You know, none of them are even, and again, it's not our fault, and I'll get to that. None of them even know the fact that this bitter cola nut has so many medicinal properties within it. Yes, so again, remember what I said at the very beginning. Our ancestors understood the importance of nature. So that bitter cola, because of its medicinal properties, it will come to play a very important role in that tradition, right? And they don't understand that aspect because in their minds, that colonial programming is so strong that so long as you're not mentioning the name Jesus or you're looking for some blonde, blue-eyed guy, it can't be correct. It's the same way that racism has programmed and influenced the mind. There's no separation between it. You can actually see racism starting in the religious imagination of people. Yeah, this is where they started racism. Because if you look at, for instance, the Pope's papal bulls that he gave the first Portuguese explorers, he didn't say go and colonize these people because their skin are black. Specifically, he said these people are heathens or pagans, meaning it refers to your whole culture. It's not just some kind of skin issue. Yeah, and then recently, even when this George Floyd horrendous murder took place, you see that people then went back and found an old order or an old statue, which has always been a part of Christianity. Is this, I think is St. George or St. Michael slaying the dragon? I'm Catholic, but I don't remember most of that stuff. So people started bringing that statue to show the exact same thing, because in this statue, you have this angel or whatever the figure is standing on the head of this demon. And this demon is not usually always depicted as some kind of otherworldly being. Sometimes it's depicted as a black person. Yes, so we have to understand just how deeply racism is tied even into religion. But obviously, most people don't think that far or are even aware. But again, the times are showing it for itself. It doesn't even have to be me saying it, you know. Our ancestors understand that life is a cycle. So whatever wrongs have been happening in the past will come back to be resolved again. It's not a marketing thing, Nosa, only. You see, remember, blacks, I'll use that term loosely, Africans, blacks have been disadvantaged for so long. Yeah. First, we don't have the money to put together institutions that will last should we say, the test of time. Even when we have been able to, what do we find? Like places like Tulsa, places like Rosewood, you find rednecks, racist people go and break down these examples of black excellence. So it's not strictly that. I call him my uncle because he wrote a book called the Akan Traditional Religions. And then he applied to, I believe it was Oxford or Cambridge Press, to publish his book. You know what they told him? They told him this is a Christian country and we cannot publish such a book. But we're in a Christian country that's supposed to be democratic. Everybody is supposed to have a say. So the same type of, should we say, structural racism techniques that are in place have also plagued people from displaying any form of organizational African spiritual systems. Look, think about it. Why did it take me and my wife with our personal savings to make a film? Why is there no black Hollywood that could be funded and given the money to make such a film? Because it's a cultural artifact. It's not even just a normal film. So we have to understand that there is a deep level of designed marginalization of black experience and culture. So it's not us. In our case, what we're left with is we have to do the work. This film is also inspired by one of the quotes from Dr. Henry Clark, I believe it was, who said, take what you know best and do it for your people. Because that's what we're left with. Think about it. When you were doing your Rise of the Orisha film, did you get any big funding from any major institution here to help you along? Exactly. We have to do our work by ourselves. As sad as it may sound, I don't see it as something sad, because when you do something, you're reminded of your power. You are reminded of your own potential. So for me, I actually, in a sense, to a degree, I'll prefer this rather than have someone spoon feeding me. Say, oh yeah, go ahead and do it. No, this is mine and I own it. And you can never take that away from me. You understand? So it's not just a marketing thing. I get your point, but no, it's not just a marketing thing, because what we're dealing with is centuries old. Yeah, we've only been doing some of this work within possibly even the last 100 years or so. So just compare centuries versus a few hundred years. We're getting there, Nosa, yeah? And the marketing will come of itself. As you look, the way you did your work, gave it that artistic feel and vibe to it, people could actually get with it more, yeah? So we'll get there, but it's not just a marketing thing. It's also structural racism and organizational and systemic racism. That really is what the issue is. Yeah.
No, that's really clear how you put it, because it's, you know, as you're saying, it's sort of like it all works together. Like it's not just one level. And I guess when I think about spirituality, I think about how the spirituality that people practice, how it makes them think. So, for instance, you know,
Mm-hmm.
you have the Haitian Revolution. You have people who call upon Ogun and go out and, you know, bring about the Haitian Revolution. But then you have
Absolutely.
other types. So, how would you say that? Sort of like, how would you say? This is a two-pronged question. How would you say the African spirituality, sort of ancestor reverence, changes the
Mm-hmm.
mind? But also, how would you
Mm-hmm.
say monotheism and polytheism, being somebody who has sort of experienced both, um,
Mm-hmm.
makes one think and changes how they think?
All right then. So I'll deal with the first question. If I
Cool.
forget the second one, obviously bring me back
I'll
again.
bring you back. It's
So
cool.
the first question was, I guess, how does African spirituality change your thinking process? Yeah, and it's a beautiful question you've asked, because I have to remind you again at this point. We can call it African spirituality, but we're not, in a sense, only dealing with a system of, should we call it gnosis, belief, worship, and so on, as you would define a religion. We're dealing with a science, yeah, a sacred science. I call it sacred because it deals with elements which really are connected to what we call creation. So, as you've correctly said, I'll give you an example, because you know we've all been programmed to bring us to this space where modern Western science is literally the new God. Yeah, everything science says that must be it. So it had to take about up till 2013 for Emory University to come up with this concept. Well, they didn't come up with it, but the term is associated there. They have something called chromosomic memory. Yeah, and what chromosomic memory essentially is stating is that every ancestor you've ever had exists somewhere in your DNA. There's aspects of them within your DNA. So when you're calling on your ancestors, yes, and you're calling them by name, even the very sounds that you make, because the sounds me and you are speaking and we can understand because we have a shared lexicon, but then the sounds that you're making creates vibrations into the atmosphere. Yeah, and life, as we know it, all of creation is a vibration. It's a frequency. It's just different, atoms or molecules that are vibrating at different frequencies. Some vibrate so fast, we call it air, and we breathe it. Some, however, have a higher density, and they create physical body forms. So whichever way you look at it, we are nature and directly connected to nature. So when you're getting into these practices, what you're doing, number one, first of all, you're releasing a lot of energy. You know, when you see people dancing in the ritual space, sweating out, all of this is energy being expelled. And that energy, as again, we have to go back to the European science, because this is where our programming has affects us the most. We have that law of conservation of energy, that no energy can be destroyed, it just changes form. So what our ancestors know, or understood rather, is the fact that we're always in touch with that ancestral essence because it's a part of us. It's in our makeup. So by going into ancestral reverence and keeping that connection, we are always in connection with them. And as we do these rituals, we kind of activate them in our subconscious memory, and it can affect us in different ways. Yes. So again, going back to the Haitian Revolution, as you mentioned, when you look in it, you find that one of the things that they did when they were going to war was to be beating a lot of drums. The drums would even scare the French soldiers. Yeah, the very final battle where this General Rochambeau was defeated. Go and read the annals. They were all like, something was going on that day because they could not understand. It was almost like the Africans they were fighting weren't human anymore. Yeah, but then again, if you also understand why we have drumming so much, you put your hand here on your chest, you can hear a drum beat right there. So you see, again, we know our drum beat, and then Africans create what? A drum. We live as extensions of nature. This is what our ancestors understood, and it's a science, because now Westerners are telling us they've extended the understanding of science into something called quantum science or quantum even physics, and you have all different forms of quantum understandings. But most of these are what our ancestors were saying. So I didn't need somebody from Emory University to come and tell me that my whole makeup is from my ancestors. This is what our ancestors were telling dear missionaries when they landed on our shores. And they told us it was superstition. And this is what most of our people believe. Yeah? Because they don't see any of us wearing long white coats, playing with little liquids in a laboratory, because our laboratory is nature. Our ancestors have been here long enough to understand that the earth is a living laboratory. And everything that we need, we can access from it via ritual. Yeah, we don't need to write long formulas and equations. Those equations exist within our very selves. So that's just one aspect of should we say the quantum understandings that I will give you. The other one is actually quite simple. I was on another call the other day with a group called Yorubaisms, yeah, and the brother that came on, he spoke Yoruba, and he gave me a proverb. He just said this proverb randomly, and basically that proverb, I could then tell him an Akan proverb that meant the same thing. And basically what this proverb was saying is that in Tree it says nipa baako ne ku osono na amansan nyina na edi. That means it takes one person to kill an elephant and the whole universe consumes the elephant. Now when you hear this you think, oh, these Africans, man, they're talking so much rubbish. But think about it. You've killed the elephant, you might eat its flesh. You might be able to put its skin to some other use. Yeah. It goes into the air. It took European science, I've forgotten the name of the scientist. He came up with this idea called the butterfly effect, which basically states that if a butterfly flaps its wing in the Philippines, it can turn into a tornado on the other side of the world. The spiritual concept in Africa is called Ubuntu. It just means we're all connected. Yeah, in one way, shape, or form. And when you think about it, of course, we're all connected. How can we not be connected? Because the same air I'm breathing here, Nosa, is that same air keeping you alive over there.
Yeah.
You know, it's simple, but we like complex explanations because, you know, it makes us feel intelligent. But is that really intelligent? But that's another topic. So now, what was the second aspect of your question?
Polytheism. So basically, yeah, I always think, okay, when a lot of people try to sort of like say, for instance, with Ifa, Yoruba religion, you know, they try to attribute it to, say, for instance, Oludumare being binary to Jehovah, you know, because a lot of people criticize, you know, how can you be polytheistic? Monotheism is amazing and so forth. And I always wonder, why is that something which people consider just a standard thing, you know? So I wanted to ask the question, but also sort of like on the basis of how does it make you think differently, polytheism versus monotheism?
Absolutely. You know, for a while, I even struggled with that description, polytheism, because what polytheism kind of denotes is that there's this kind of main supreme being, and then he has all these messengers, which is what we try to correlate the idea of the Orishas or the Abosum or the Neteru to. Yeah, but then I came across brilliant definitions. Actually, one of the few times I've heard this word by the UK historian Robin Walker, and he actually says when you really look at it, the better way to describe African systems is Hantheism. And what Hantheism really states is that this core essence of the creator is basically just exist in everything. So there is no hierarchy like polytheism likes to denote. Because you see, again, that idea of polytheism is another one of the tools that they use to discredit African traditional religions. Because then, if you take that polytheistic definition, you can claim in there that, oh yeah, some of these entities are all negative, or they're this and they're that. Do you understand? And then they then feel that this idea of monotheism is somehow better because there has to always be a supreme. Yeah. But then when you look at the way capitalism works, you can understand why they would go for monotheism. Because let's not forget, an African of ancient times tried to force this idea of monotheism. His name was Akhenaten. He tried to change the Egyptian mystery system to fit this idea. But really, all he was doing is he was trying to let the people say, worship me. Yes, because he's at the top of the pyramid and then everybody is down. So you can already see how monotheism is the perfect tool for capitalistic exploitation, because they're telling you, and what did the Europeans tell us? Oh, we're better than you. We're high up here and you're down there. So you need to do what? Look up to us. Polytheism is the most perfect way to manipulate and control people. And again, as I said, you can see it directly in the way capitalism operates. Whereas if you're looking at the idea of, we can call it, for the purposes of this conversation, polytheism or pantheism, we're looking at the idea of a circle. Remember, I told you about the idea of time already. In African spiritual thought, we live in a circle. There are no power points in a circle. Everybody is the same. Yeah. No, a pyramid, however, somebody is up here at the top, and all the rest of us, the working class, is at the bottom. As I said, this thing fits the perfect way for capitalism to work. So it's no surprise that they will promote that over another understanding of the world that gives people more agency. Some people can create a priestly class and say, oh yeah, we are the custodians to God. You have to get to God through us. Why? When I was born, you weren't standing next to my mom. You didn't give me life, But then they put themselves in a position of power, which then automatically puts you where? In a position of lack. So this is why I said monotheism, the only thing it really promotes is this idea of looking up to others. It disempowers you. Because, if you don't go and see the priest, how are you going to baptize your child? How do you think you can make your child worthy? Worthy of what? Your child has been given life. The minute it's entered this realm, it must be okay with the creator. Because remember, if we're saying that this source creates everything, then who's man to decide who's worthy or not? We have no business and no power to make these decisions. But then again, this is how propaganda and marketing works. You can convince someone to make them feel less than you if you keep repeating the lie long enough. And sadly, most people do believe it. Yeah, they think that you have to believe that there is only one God. Okay, so there's God. Why doesn't God need a female counterpart, but human beings need a female counterpart to produce life? We should all be men here who just think and make babies. What's the female doing here? Why are women here? But nobody thinks of these things, because again, this lie has gone on for so long, it's been normalized. And there are people now who are willing to kill themselves to defend a lie. Yeah, something that defies common sense. So this is just where we are. For me, I more go on the, we can call it poly, but as I said, pantheism basically states that creative essence exists in everything. Whereas poly still has the God at the top, and then everything comes down. Do you understand? So I would say pantheism gives people the opportunity to say, hey, maybe I also have something to contribute to the world. Yeah? Maybe I'm also important. So it's an empowering place to be, rather than if you're there, oh, please, he's going to help me, he's going to help me. No, absolutely no. It doesn't work like that, sadly. So that's what it is.
Amazing. You just that was an awesome answer, I have to say. And thank you for that.
No problem. I think you're bringing it out, so thank you too.
I think it's like what you said in terms of like we are. Some of these belief systems were taken to place the power outside of us, so that like you said, we can look up and basically give away our own power. And I like the whole idea of pantheism. The circle and everything sort of connects. So I want to ask two questions again. Another two-pronged question. Firstly, give me just another definition of, like, if you were to put African spirituality into a short definition, how would you describe it. And then, yeah, no, I'll just let you do that first, and then I'll follow up.
No problem. Yeah, African spirituality is basically the tools for finding purpose in your life,
Beautiful.
for finding the purpose for why you're even alive.
Beautiful.
Why are you here?
And yeah. what is your opinion? Because I read something on your blog the other day. But what's your opinion on syncretism? What's your opinion on syncretism?
Syncretism, yeah.
And could you explain what syncretism is for anybody who may not know as well?
Sure. So syncretism mainly refers to how in the diaspora, in places like Haiti, Brazil, you know, and quite a few other places, because we can even find from Venezuela to Bolivia, there's a whole heap of black people in this world that have been cut off from the rest of the black consciousness, yeah, all across Southern Africa. When I was in Brazil, I met this couple, and they'd come from like a remote part of Brazil, where they were African-looking people like this, who'd been brought there. They weren't just, you know, indigenous to the land like how we know Africans were all over the globe. So, yeah. What you have to remind me of the question again. Sorry.
The question was just, what is your opinion on syncretism?
Right. Okay. Yeah. So yes, syncretism. So, my opinion is you could say is threefold as well. Syncretism for the Africans who were caught in the African Holocaust, in the places that they ended up finding themselves, they had to find, remember, our traditions once upon a time, you see me and you, this conversation that we're having, perhaps after we finish, nobody will see either of us again if we're living in those times. This was made illegal. It was made illegal because the European realized that the Africans drew so much power from these systems. These systems afforded the rebellion for the African to say, you know what, no. Because again, how can I know that I'm born to come and fulfill a purpose, and you're telling me my only purpose in life is to work for you forever, and my children will come and also work for you forever, while you sit there with your feet up, enjoying life, and still calling me barbaric? Yeah. So they had to do everything possible to quell Africans practicing their cultural traditions, which is why Africans in the diaspora don't have African names, can't speak the language in some cases, and all the rest of it, because it was a deliberate means to separate us. So what the African did, and because we, again, remember, we understand that life is just consciousness, it's just energy. So they looked at the lexicon within and the symbolism in religious figures, and then added them or mapped them to their understandings of their natural forces. Yeah. So I'll give you an example. There's Saint, I believe it's either Saint Anthony. Again, look, for me, I had to remove most of these things from my teenage years, because this is my formative years. I had to fill my head with something else, so I can't remember the exact saint, but he carries a sword. He's actually linked with, you know, the statue I mentioned at the beginning of this saint who's stepping on the head of a black devil.
I think it's Saint George. Yeah, it should be.
Okay, yeah, one or the other. But basically, because he had a sword, the Africans thought, okay, snap. Which of our natural forces do we know works with metals? It's Ogun. So we will pin this saint to be our representation of Ogun. So I can make my oppressor think I'm actually taking on board his religion, but when I'm in the church, I'm not calling Saint Christopher or Anthony or whoever. In my mind, I'm calling Ogun, yes, Saint Michael, yes. In some places, they have different names. So I'll give you an example. If you go to a place like Bahia in Brazil, right, they will start telling you this church is Ogun's church. That church is Shango's church, because there's a place called Perulinho. It's like one of the most concentrated places of with Africans. And interestingly enough, it also has possibly the most miles in that tiny area, the most churches in that area. So you can see that the Europeans were forcible in how they wanted the Africans to forget their traditions. But they knew which church. So let's say it's on Sunday, you want to, is Yamanja you need to pray to because you want to bear children or whatever else. You will go to the church for your manja, and you're not going there to pray to Jesus. You're going there specifically because you have put your energies to define this space as that energy. And we saw no qualms with it, because again, remember, the man-made representations don't represent the energetic essence of these things. We had to do that in that time. Even myself, let me give you my own experience, Nosa, because for me, when I was, this is in about 96, when I just finished secondary school, and I was getting a lot of connections with my grandmother who passed about 10 years before. And my whole life, I had been Catholic. I was raised Catholic. I went to Catholic primary school, then Catholic secondary school. I was doing all the rituals. So when I started getting these impressions, I didn't know how to connect with my grandma. I was like, so how do we build this connection? So the only thing I knew was, okay, I know that in the church you have a candle, and then there's this rosary, and we pray the rosary, So how I came into, and I had to listen to what my mind was telling me to do. I just, I'll light the candle, I'll pray the rosary, and then I will write like a letter for my grandma. And then I'll read the letter out, and then we would have a conversation. Maybe in the night I will get a dream. So syncretization or syncretism doesn't necessarily take anything away from the traditions, but that's when we were in periods of survival. That's when it depended on our lives. Our lives actually depended on it. Now, again, as I said, me and you were having these conversations. We know we'll wake up tomorrow, the day after, and go out. There won't be a lynch mob waiting for us outside to burn us at the stake, yes? So at that time, I can understand why we needed to do the syncretism. But our lives are not endangered simply for connecting back to our traditions, yes? Because you see, the other thing that's very, very important, and we know it's very important because in the 7 Hermetic principles, which is one of the most useful laws of spirituality that an African wrote down. And this African, interestingly enough, they called him Thoth, which reflects, again, your thoughts. Yeah. The first of these 7 laws is the laws of mentalism. And what it states is that nothing can be in existence unless it's from where? The mental space. So if we're constantly looking at images that look European, we're still having some kind of psychic drawback. Did you understand?
I hear you.
So in this day and age, we don't have to do that. In this day and age, we need to represent ourselves the way that we're supposed to be. Yes, we cannot blame those ancestors. What they did is what has actually kept those traditions in many of these places. Survival. Yeah, but again, exactly. But again, even in these places, I'll give you another example. In Brazil, for instance, they had these liberated zones called quilombos. Yeah, in these places, there was no slave master there. There was no colonizer there. How did they function in these societies? It was pure African cultural, spiritual expressions. You can watch, I believe the film's called, is it called Zumbi? Yes, Zumbi dos Palmares. That's one such film. Yes. Which other areas of the Haitian Revolution is one such? If you look at even the Maroons culture in Jamaica, yes, you wouldn't go to these settlements and find white Jesus standing in the middle of the space. No, they went back and they kept those traditions. This is why in Trinidad now you will find Shango. Shango is such a highly revered deity that he's even now part of Christianity. They have something called Shango Baptist Church. But I thought our forces were meant to be negative. So where did we get to? Oh, thank you very much. And then we have Cuba. Yeah, read the history of Cuba again. Look, all of Cuba's revolutions, even Fidel's revolution started in a place called Santiago de Cuba. I've been there. And this place is full of Africans like me and you, Nonso. They look like us. You would think, hey, that's my cousin over there. And you see, this is the interesting thing, because they know that place to be a high source of what? African spiritual practices. This is historical fact. You can check it out. It's where Fidel began his revolution. Why? Because he knows. Many people even claim that Fidel is an initiate. in the traditions.
Okay.
So again, if they didn't do that, and keep, let's say, link Yemanja to the Virgin Mary or whatever else, that knowledge could be, it would have disappeared by now, Nonso. And sorry, I call you the Hollywood actor. Sorry, yeah,
it's
Nosa.
no
Yeah,
problem. You're on the flow,
without the
man.
N, without the N in the middle. Yeah, sorry about that. Apologies. Yeah,
No
I
problem,
knew it
man.
was coming. I was like, oh, don't say it. Okay. Yeah. So Nosa. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't like syncretism. We don't need to do it anymore now. But we shouldn't also get on a high horse and start cussing off those ancestors of before. It was strategic and it was necessary. Yeah, but it's not necessary now. Yeah, let me see the Ogun that looks like Nosa. I don't want to see Ogun that looks like, say, Michael or Anthony or George or whoever else, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. So, someone just asked a question. I'll just answer that question. So, we're gonna actually just so everybody knows where the live is going to end because we're coming up to the 1 hour mark. I'm going to restart it again. Keep going for a little bit longer because your flow is like amazing right now, bro. So,
well, you're forward. You're bringing it out. Let's go.
So we'll keep it on for a little longer. So yeah, we will log off in a bit, or it will turn off in a bit, but we'll log back on. So just please log back on to the live, you and everybody else who's listening.
Yes.
So someone just brought up a question about the pyramids, and I think they want you to discuss the significance of the pyramids.
Oh, absolutely. That's a beautiful question. Let me shout out to the lady though, because she's a good friend of my wife, Tonya Gonzalez, I believe her name is. Yeah. So yeah, beautiful question, sis. I love that. I'm my degree is in a field called information design. Yeah, and information design deals with a lot of things. And when you hear the word information, that tells you a lot of people think information is just what you read in books. But you see, even what me and you are discussing here, you see there are people telling us they agree with us, they understand it. That's information being transmitted. So information can be sound, it can be a color. Anything is information, so long as you can comprehend it. Yeah. And one of the important things I learned in this degree was just how much all of our lives are designed. Every aspect you can think of. Yeah. So one of the first things you look in any society is its architecture, because this architecture also reflects the main psychology of the people. So if you look at the shape of a pyramid, yes, because you see, many people think Africa is the shape that we have it. South Africa is at the bottom and then the north is up there. No. That's just how the world was drawn. Because again, there's this idea of something called semantics. Yeah. When you're sick, what do you say, Nosa? Oh, I feel down. But you haven't fallen down, have you? Which down are you feeling? There's no down. It's again a metaphorical way to link your mind to a space. This is how information design works. So, if you're feeling happy, you say, oh, I feel like today. Yeah, but you're not up. You're still in the same place. This is how your whole spatial arrangement and understanding is designed a certain way. So again, architecture can be related back to the psychology of the people. Yeah. And I don't know if you've seen that video where there's a European scientist. And again, he's talking about this concept called fractals. Yeah. Fractals are like forms of geography that some people call sacred geometry. So again, what he was saying was that even the way Africans braid our hair has this fractal geometry in it. And when he asked the Africans, how did you know about this fractal? They were like, fractal? This is just what we do. The way that we design our so-called villages, our settlements, the way we have these pyramids that align with celestial bodies. Yeah. So we are not just of this world. We understand how we in this world relates to everything in the cosmos. Yeah. So back to the pyramids. When you look at the shape of a pyramid, what does it look like? Remember that first thing I said about the capitalism aspect, and why monotheism fits in there. So at the pyramid, there's somebody here, and that person or that group is tiny, but then at the bottom is a whole heap of people. So the very shape of the pyramid is an indication of a kind of classes system. Yeah. I know people say, the pyramid might be a battery, it might be this, it might be all of that. I'm only talking about the shape, because form informs us a lot. Yeah, because when you look at other African civilizations that came before we got to Egypt, because again, remember what I told you, don't think of Africa like the north is where now we have Egypt and the rest. It's actually south. That's the orientation of the world. But again, when you look at imperialism and colonialism, because they also understood these truths, they knew how to draw the map of the world. So
we are live again, and I'm just waiting for Dalian to come back on. Yeah, fantastic conversation. Yeah, like there's a lot of information that he's just given. Hey Tonya, how you doing? Hello everybody. I'm just waiting for Dalian to come back on again. What's up? Yeah, like are you guys enjoying the conversation? I think he's just dropping a lot of jewels. Just I'm grateful as well. I'm waiting for him to come back on again. Hold on 1 second. I'm sure he's gonna pop back in. So yeah, he was just answering the question about pyramids and how they relate to. I think he was going on to talk about how pyramids relate to the apex and someone being at the top. It's fantastic. It's great to hear. I'm happy you guys are enjoying it. Okay, darling, where are you at? I'm gonna have a look for him right now. Please give us a second. Let me just bring him back on again. Ancestral, where are you? Okay. He should be coming back in a second. Yeah, I'm waiting for him to finish because he was just on a flow about the pyramids, and I'm waiting for him to finish what he had to say about that. Oh, thank you, Tonya. Yeah, so we're working on speaking about films. We're working on a new film right now. It's going to be talking about. It's going to be focused on Ogun. Spoken about with relation to the Haitian Revolution. And yeah, I'm getting a lot of inspiration from everything you're saying, Dalian. So,
my video again.
Like your voice is just entering in from the. I can't see you, but I can hear you.
Hey,
there we go.
Back.
Yes. So you were just talking about the pyramids, Dalian.
Yeah. So yeah, just that no, so just give me a little heads up, like a minute left, and then I will yeah, sort that out. But yeah, basically, if you look at the shape of the pyramid, as I said, there's only a few people at the top, and they rule over everybody else. That's what that shape of that building also informs us about the type of civilization that they had. And again, as I said, we all revere this place, now labeled Egypt, as the highest point of our civilization. But actually, it's the opposite. And one of the first people to really explore this, I believe they call it the southern cradle of civilization. I've been to South Africa. I had to go to South Africa to film the first film. So the second film, sorry. So I've been in certain caves and I've seen different forms that we find in African symbology now. You can see this is where they started and then went further up. Yeah. Now, how I also know this for a fact is, did you know that there were circular pyramids in the place we now call Nigeria, where you're from, that the British totally destroyed? First, they took pictures by them and then they destroyed them. Okay. Yes, circular. Circle. Oh, right. Okay. This is quite open knowledge. Yeah. Now, the question we have to ask is, why would certain Africans at a certain point in time be designing pyramids which are circular, and then we go and find at the very edge, or where we find African joining the rest of the world, start building these triangular shapes? What we can discern is elements of power corruption. That this is what's going on, because you don't go from doing something that fits with your cosmological worldview to start them building something that denotes a certain power dynamic. Yeah. it doesn't make any sense. Again, for those who really study that southern cradle of civilization, they'll be very clear to you that this is when African culture actually started taking a dip. Yeah. And for those who might say, oh, but what does Kemet or Egypt have to do with the rest of Africa? Plenty. The first person to categorically prove that the ancient Egyptians were related to the people we call the Akan of Ghana today, it was some European lady. What's her name? Meskowicz, or it's an Eastern European name. Sorry, I'm not gonna lie, I can't pronounce the name. But again, anyone who really wants those names, send us an email. I will furnish you with that information. But then even recently, I have a friend of mine. His name is Dr. Jugs. What he's done, he then took the woman's research, and he's also now been able to show directly a linkage between these ancient Egyptians and the Yoruba people of Nigeria. He just passed his thesis. He's now a doctor. Yeah, so we shouldn't separate aspects of Africa. But those pyramids, one of the clear things they denote is abuse, or, well, let me not call it abuse of power, but what's the word? A concentration of power by a few over many. And really, when we see that happening in societies, that's when the societies start to crumble. We're living in one such experience now. So that's what the shape got.
So speaking of that, speaking of living in this society now, how do you, like, we're living in a time of crisis, I think, I'm sure, would you agree with that? That's a question.
When you say crisis, what does that mean? Is this crisis that implies that there is problems or issues, or do you mean transformative change? Because you have to understand what you're saying. The way it will affect your mind is different to how it will affect mine.
So
go on.
I see it as evolution. I see it as we're moving into a new paradigm. But just like when a plane is taking off, you have turbulence. When a baby's being born, it's not a gentle process. So I kind of see it like that.
Good.
So, but at that point, that there's going to be a lot of things that happen, and there's going to be a lot of people who fall off because they're not going to go there. So my question is, in this tumultuous period, this time when things are just getting crazy, how do you think African spirituality works within this era, and how do you think it can help people maybe make that transition to the next stage of evolution that we're going through?
Right, absolutely. Very good question, Nosa, what role does African spirituality play? African spirituality is what's happening. That's what's happening. That's the change. Because African spirituality is life. There's no separation from life. It is life. And what's the most common adage we say? The only constant in life is
change.
How can change be a constant? Doesn't that even go against scientific understanding? A constant cannot change. It's supposed to be constant. But then we have this weird adage: the only constant in life is change. So African spirituality is change. African spirituality is forces in dynamic motion, which have always been in motion. Yes, it's man's overinflated sense of importance that has led us to think we can control nature, that we're somehow so intelligent that we can have more power than forces which determine how we live. When it's nighttime, what do? We go to sleep, and then we wake up in the daytime. So I don't know who thought that just because they could do one gene splice here or one gene splice there, they know it all. That's just nonsense. And again, nature will have to remind you. Yeah, this is what nature is. We've done what we think we can do, but nature also has to show us, hey, hold on a minute, you're in my house. Yeah, you cannot decide what you do in my house. Just as your parent probably told you when you were growing up, when you grew up in an African home. You can't go out at 6 p.m. What are you talking about? You're in my house. When you can afford your own house, go there and do that stuff over there. Yeah. So for me, this is just African spirituality in action. The reason why it seems so, should we say, abrasive, is the fact that most people have lost that connection with nature. Most people have been living on a prayer when they should be living in ritual. Yes, when they should know by now even what is coming or what to expect. And it matters not what a little, some people call it science, psychologist friend of mine calls it instrumentalism, which is basically people play with instruments and then they think they know something. Yeah, remember, our Babalawos could compute the whole 256 elements of a binary language, but now we need computers to do it. So our minds itself have come down in our potential. So no, for me, what's happening is African spirituality. And the second part of your question was to do with, you mean what role is it going to play now?
Yes.
It's everything, Nosa. It's everything. So as I told you, as of now, each and every one of us really, first of all, because you have a physical body, you need to strengthen it. There's a range of herbs that will boost your immune system. You see that bitter cola that you even mentioned at the beginning here? Bitter cola can clean your body of all manner of toxins. All manner of toxins. Really and truly, if you're serious about your life, you should be chewing a bit of bitter cola at least once a month because it will clean your whole system. Yeah, it looks like a little, because, we like grand things. Now we want to build some tower in the sky in Abu Dhabi, but it has no power because one big wind will blow that whole building down. But that little bitter cola can freshen out your whole body. So we need to get back into some of the herbal knowledge. We need to understand which herbs are good for us, which herbs can buffer up our immune system, which herbs will change the physiology of our body, which herbs will help us in our thinking process more. Yeah? And then most importantly, we need to look at the natural cycles, this thing called the sun and the moon, how they move, and how do we connect with these things? Because at different times of what we call the month, if we put a bit of energy out, yeah, we take some time, and I'll give you the kind of simples and the basics, even though there's nothing simple and basic in African spirituality. All things have tremendous power if you know how to use it. So just take a simple candle to give you some light, to bring some passion, to bring, some heat to the equation, and you bring some water, because water is life. You can just sit with these things for 15, 20 minutes. Just allow your thoughts to wander. Ask yourself questions. There's a lot of change going on. What do I do? How can I position myself to always be a positive recipient of this change? You can take that water out. Let's say it's a full moon. You put it outside. You come back the next morning. You pour a bit of libation with that water and just drink that water. And you will see how your whole day starts to look like a movie. Yeah, because you will start to get these experiences that you wonder, oh, snap, where did these experiences, where have they been all this while? Yeah, because I don't want to start letting people to say, go and do this XY initiation, go and do, no. Start simple. You first need to understand this one here before you go anywhere else, because this one here is reflected in the entire cosmos. Much of what you need to know, you already know it. It's just not in your conscious understanding. And this is what ritual allows you to do. The more you do it, the more you rewire your programming. The more your understanding change, the more your perspective changes, the more the interactions that you have also change, because you are also a force of nature. Yeah, this is the most important thing for us to remember, Nosa. Yeah, we are forces of nature. We are no different to the Orishas that we understand in our systems. We are no different to the Neterus that the ancient Black Egyptians understood and have a relationship with. We are no different to the Odinani that the Igbos also understand. We are no different to the Abosoms that the Akan also revere and work with. Yeah, because you are also a force of nature. You have to get into the natural work. As I said, get into the herbs, read about them, read about a whole range of everything. To do with natural herbs, plants, and foliage. That's the knowledge that's going to save you. But you see, let's also understand this. As you correctly said, it sounds harsh, but not everybody's supposed to make it. Even when we say that, when we say no, not everyone's supposed to make it, but but it doesn't mean they go anywhere. There's nothing really bad that's happening to them. They're just not in their physical form anymore. It's those of us who are left in the physical form who then create, sadness and loneliness because we don't have those other people in that physical form. But if you are working in African spirituality, then you know ways to constantly keep them connected with you. So nothing is ever lost. It depends on what you're working with and where you're doing that work. So yeah, that's my short answer. Sorry for that.
No, it's beautiful, man. Thank you.
No problem.
A lot of people have been, posting up. So we're gonna go for another, say, 10 more minutes. All
right, sure.
If anybody's got any more questions, please just forward them, fire them through. A lot of people have been writing this up, and I wrote this down myself. You said something where you said a lot of people are dependent upon prayer, but not necessarily ritual. What is the difference? What did you mean by that?
Excellent. Yes, Nosa, keep the questions coming. First of all, a ritual really just refers to a process that has consistency, a process that you keep going. Yeah. And the reason why rituals are important is conducting ritual is like charging a battery. The more you do it, the stronger it gets, the deeper the insights that also come. Yeah. So this is why ritual is important. It keeps you connected because for every day of your life that you stay in this body, Nosa, the sun will come up, won't it? Then it will give way to the moon. So life itself is a ritual. There's a series of prescribed acts that go on and on and on. A prayer in the religious sense is just you there saying, jabba, 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 ba, 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 just expelling your hope, your aspirations into the ether. And you see, don't get me wrong, Nosa, that in itself has its own potential. But what we're dealing with is levels of connection. Yeah. So first of all, you just making that prayer to someone who came and basically committed genocide on your ancestors. First of all, you've kind of created an imbalance in the ether. There's an imbalance there. You cannot give reverence to someone who's created an imbalance in your heritage, who's left you, in a sense, half whole. You're not full anymore because an aspect of you have been taken. So what you're doing, even by being in those spaces, and look, I'm not cussing anybody who decides to go to church or their mosque. If it's working for you at this level, that's okay. But as you can see now, Corona just started January, and none of your churches and mosques are helping you. Yeah, because it can't. Because these things are man-made. You're a bioenergetic battery. I prefer the term force of nature, but yeah. So you just emitting these words to something that the Roman Catholic Church used as a political tool, you're not really helping yourself. Yeah, you're doing one element, because don't get me wrong, we do have incantations in ritual too, in the African traditions. But look, before you do that incantation, at the beginning, you would have poured libation to bring in that force of creation. Yeah, somebody would have danced to release energy. So just look at all the things that are going into what we might call a ritual, and this is a simple ritual. Yeah, and then somebody might have played some drums to again do what? Connect maybe your heartbeat with the ritual. Look at all these elements that have made up the African ritual. And then think of an African on their knees with this big image of some white guy in front of them, just saying, please come and help me, please come and help me. Meanwhile, that statue didn't help your ancestors anyway. Why would it come and help you? But you're there and you're breathing. Each time you pull in a breath, you're connecting yourself to what we call God or the Creator. You don't need to get on your knees. You don't even need to stand up. You can be lying down and you still have that connection. But ritual amplifies the energy. That's what is key about ritual. It amplifies the energy and the connection. Just doing verbal chat, you're only using one form of energy. Where's the dancing? Where's the sweating? Where's the drum beat? Because again, remember what I said, vibration. You've not done any of that. You're just sitting there, and you're even using a language that doesn't have any guttural sounds in it. The way we speak in Africa uses different parts of our lymph nodes. It vibrates different parts of your body. So this language me and you are speaking is kind of like a devolved language. It won't give us much.
It's limited.
Yeah, just listen to how when you speak either Yoruba or any of the other African dialects, very different sound because it emits a different vibration. Yeah. So if we've been made weak, we need to boost our strength with those other elements of ritual. And only prayer won't cut it. Sorry, that's just one aspect of energy that you're releasing. You can release way more. There's a lot more that you can use. So yeah, that's the difference. Prayer, just verbal. Ritual can be verbal, audio, kinetic. What was the other energy? Magnetic. Yeah, it's electrical because again, we also have elements of the mentalism that I mentioned to you. That's another form of energy. Yeah, and science will tell you your thoughts are electrical synapses. They won't tell you it's pictures that you see in your mind. Your thoughts are bursts of electricity. Let that sink in. So when I say again, you are a being or a force of nature, it's not just nonsense or opinion. It will be proven by any scientist. Yeah. So let's use the energy we have within ourselves. Yeah.
I want to go back to another thing which I saw on your blog.
Okay.
And it's two more questions I got in mind, but this is one of them.
No problem. Go ahead. Go. One after the other, please, because as you can see, I can speak and forget.
It's cool. I got you. Yeah. I got you.
Good.
So, okay. How am I gonna? So basically, there is. I heard something sometime where somebody said, how could a lot of the men who, sort of started up, or were at the beginning of the inception of the white men who were at the inception of America and a lot of these other countries were connected to these secret societies. And a lot of these secret societies, within their iconography, you can see its connection to, again, African spirituality and so forth. But then those same people came back to tell their people to disrespect and demonize and degrade these people that they got that from. So, I mean, I just wanted to see if you could talk a bit about the connection between, African spirituality and secret societies, how it connects.
There's many, when we use the word secret society, sometimes what we're implying is the fact that I guess it's an antisocial movement, yeah. But secret societies are not antisocial to a degree, no, because basically what a secret society is a custodian of a particular knowledge system, yeah. They just keep certain information and knowledge that has been possibly here with us since the dawn of time. They keep it, yeah, and because it's not all knowledge that you give to everyone, Nosa. Yeah, this is why in our systems we had ritual and initiation systems, because in this system we can judge if this person possesses the right character to hold that knowledge. Yeah, because as I said, there's some pieces of knowledge, believe you me, it will blow your mind. In a sense, it can actually let you leave what we call your sane understanding. There's a lot of things in this world, and it's not everything that needs discussing in a public or open forum. You have to show that you're worthy of that knowledge being shared with you, that you're not going to then turn this knowledge into something that just benefits you and no one else. But isn't it interesting that even though we have that same reason for why much of this knowledge is not shared freely and openly, that's exactly the situation that has happened. Yeah, because we've had people who our ancestors taught and gave them so much knowledge, and then they came back and destroyed us with that knowledge. Yeah. So, for me, one of the most interesting rituals that I know some of these secret societies have is this a ritual where they put people in coffins. Yeah, you be in the coffin for a certain number of days and you come back out. And when you hear that, you know, if you're easily afraid, you might be, oh wow, this is the evidence. The devil worshippers. Hey, wait, hold on a minute. First of all, the people who are running this world partake of this. Again, we have to look at life in a certain symbolic format. You going in a coffin is where we're all going to end up. Yeah, first of all. So there really isn't nothing major here, but it will be linked with a ritual of resurrection, because you see, again, Nosa, you see the human body does this just about every day. You know, you shed skin cells and new skin replaces that. So the human being is like a snake. Every day we're shedding and transforming ourselves. Not all of us are aware, some of us are. So all this ritual of you going and being in that coffin and being brought back out, in some places, they will actually bury you underground, because the earth is like the womb of Mother Earth. So you can go in that earth and come back out, what? Renewed. It's basic symbology. It's not, yeah, there's other aspects of it which you can draw or harness certain power from it. But looking at it at a basic symbolic level, this is not anything that should scare anybody. But again, going back to your point, some of this knowledge is in these, what we might call the Western, Freemasons being an example, but there's a whole heap of them, Rosicrucianists, there's all sorts, yeah? What we do see now, though, and this goes back to Tonya Gonzalez's question about the pyramid, because you see, where Europeans came to land was where? In this place now, we now call Egypt, at the tail end of African cultural, it's not a downfall, but you know, everything rises and everything falls. That's a cycle. So they caught us on the tail end. So perhaps even some of these ideas were transferred onto these guys, because when Alexander came back, he burned the whole library and took the books that he wanted. So all of that ancestral knowledge were possibly in the vaults of the Vatican. Yeah, and then why are we surprised when we know that the Vatican, for an area which is the size of a small city, is recognized as a whole country? Yeah, so again, esoteric knowledge has and comes with a lot of power, but that power should also come with a lot of responsibility. Responsibility not just to what you want, but rather what benefits others. Sadly, this isn't where that knowledge has gone, or the knowledge that is being put to use. But again, as I've already mentioned, right, we have to come to learn and understand that that power is not just contained in those places, in ourselves. We have to learn to harness that ourselves. You don't need to go lie in a coffin to necessarily transform yourself. There are many other rituals that will give you the same effect, but that will come with your study and your dedication to it. So, you know, again, as you were asking me, why do these secret societies use this knowledge and then discredit all of African traditions? I told you at the very beginning, Nosa, this is about power. Yeah, some people just want to keep the power for themselves, but this is where the short-sightedness of this perspective comes. Because if you're not sharing that power, you end up where the world is now. You're trying to hoard all this for yourself, but really what you're doing, you're working against yourself. Because then we arrive in this place again, where change has to come. Yeah, so that's essentially my thoughts on these secret societies and whatnot. It's not devil worship. It's not no Illuminati. It's not no whatever you find on a YouTube channel that can convincingly present an argument. Most of those folks don't understand what power is and how to harness power. But we are all, as I told you, beings of power. We need to learn how to use that power, because the same way those guys are using it for their own benefits and personal greed, you can also use that power to do what? To counter that if you need to, or rather to bring positivity to, because the world always exists in a balance. So if somebody is doing their negativity, you can also counter. And then we're going to exist in the place we're supposed to be, which is a place of equilibrium, a place of balance, yeah, a place of harmony. So yeah, secret society, yeah, okay. You're also a secret society. You just don't know, because all that knowledge is a secret in your mind. Yeah, you're just not aware of it. So hey, It's neither here nor there. That's my thoughts on secret society. Yeah, it's a ploy to make you move away from your tradition, and then they can then again do what? Use you to whatever their intention is. What's your intention? What do you want, Nosa? What do you want to bring forward? Bring it forward. You know.
I want to bring
What?
forward this just amazing reconfiguration in the same way that you have of African spirituality, of how we see ourselves. I think that's really important for me.
Mm-hmm.
So speaking of that, how do
Mm-hmm.
we? Are there any references that you would give for anybody who's watching this, as well as what Ancestral Voices do,
Right.
for where people can learn more and engage more
Right.
with what you're talking about?
Right. So the first thing is, one of the reasons why we did this, because our spiritual journeys, myself and the wife, it's not been, the journey of spirit is not a straight road. You jump on it and then all of a sudden candy starts falling from the sky. Then, you find gold on the side of the road. No, none of that. Yeah. You first kind of need to almost come out of a cocoon. And sometimes that cocoon is very hot. It's very uncomfortable, but it's part of the growth. Yeah. So first thing is we wanted to at least give people an entry point because, regardless of the fact that we still have sangomas, babalaos, people are still afraid. Sometimes when you first come in contact with this knowledge, the first thing that kicks in is the safeguard that they've put in your mind. This is devilish. And then you do what? Jump to a vibration of fear. You start to fear and then you run and you leave it. So these people are also not stupid. They learn from our ancestors well. Yeah, there's a lot of psychic safeguards in our mind, and they play havoc with us. So we want this knowledge to be out there. Well, the parts that are useful to the individual. Yeah, not the high levels of knowledge that can be used in different ways, because we all need to develop our characters. Yeah, we're all now more European than we are, should we say, anything authentically African as we know it in those ancient times. So we've created a range of resources that people can learn from. Yeah, our website is www.ancestralvoices, all one word, ancestralvoices.co.uk. On there, people can find a range of articles that they can read. Yes, we also have a free online course where people can understand how our spiritual journeys came about. It's free. It's a 5-day e-course. You can watch this video, and believe you me, look, I say it all the time. Myself and my wife are no more special than you or anybody even on this call or anywhere else, Nosa. You just have to be willing to surrender to spirit, to say, look, man, I want to learn. Teach me. Yeah, no, I'm Mr. Ego. I have, I don't know, some amount of cash in my account. I drive a Ferrari. I know it all. No. Leave yourself open. Surrender to spirit. When you watch our 5-day e-course, you will see yourself in our stories. Because again, remember, Ubuntu, we are the same. We might look different in the physical form, but we're more connected than you think. Because then you start to see, oh, snap, spirituality is not this woo stuff that I thought it was. It's actually very obvious and straightforward. So I'll highly recommend that free 5-day e-course. It's free. You watch the first day, you don't like it, what have you lost? Immerse yourself in it. Understand that journey. Then after that, we also have a free book download. Our book, we have the whole chapter for free. And in there, you start to understand the different conceptions of the African creator, what people will call God. Because it's important for people to understand that this idea of this God being this man who looks like, I don't know, George Bush's great-granddad with a long beard living in this white space, all of that is just nonsense. Yeah, it's just a man-made patriarchal manipulation system. Yeah, you start to see yourself. Oh, as a woman. Oh, snap. This is why I feel a certain way at a certain time of the month. And oh, snap. This is why they always say only women are witches, but we don't hear of men who are wizards who've been killed. You start to understand a lot of things about life, and it's free. And at the back of the book, Because to write that book, I had to read over 60 different books back to back. So in there, we have a bibliography. Yeah. So after you read that first chapter, if it piques your interest, all those books listed there, you can purchase them online. You read the title. If it calls to you, you go and you learn some more about it. Yeah. So there's over 60 of them there. Feel free to read and take your journey forward. Yeah. But one thing we all need to remember, Nosa, is in this journey, you're the captain of that ship. You can't come in here and start and still be doing this dependency thing of, I need a priest, I need a baba, I need this, I can't do that, I can't do that. This is a place for you to embrace what you're capable of. So unless you're willing to be a servant to someone all the time, then you stay in religion. But if you really want to understand who you really are and what you're capable of, come and walk this path. Yeah. So yeah, go to our website. As I said, check all those free resources. In addition to that, we obviously have a home study course. This is for those who want to take the next step. You can get both films and the book as a package, and that will give you a thorough and solid understanding of African spiritual philosophies, concepts, and practices. And then after, when you're ready to really bring your force of nature, your strength out, you can then go and check our courses, because those courses are about doing. Those courses are not for someone who wants to, explore the grand idea, like, oh, why am I like the universe? Because I expand. Oh, that's such a grand, beautiful concept. And no, so what does that mean? How does that reflect as a physical human being? Because when you get into ritual, you start to see how this concept of you expanding like the universe actually works. So those online courses are called Living an African Spiritual Centered Life. Yeah, and they're on our website. So if this is the first time you've come across us, you know of us, start with the free stuff, because baby steps. We've used ourselves as the archetype to design the way we think people might want to learn about this stuff. So yeah, a bit of a mouthful, but that's what.
No, say it, bro. Say it. Speak it out.
Yeah. So yeah.
No.
That's what it basically.
Okay, so one last question. Someone's just popped up. Do you recommend divination? So that is from I am Ashira 122 who has a book which everybody should check out as well. I'll put it. Okay. Can you just post that down there? I am Ashira, your book. Okay. But yeah, could you do you recommend divination?
Yeah, I will recommend divination, because divination is like your psychic tool to understand perhaps things which, well, you can use divination in a number of ways. Yeah, you can use divination to either foresee events yet to occur. But if that's the type of divination that you're going for, I will tell you very categorically, you need someone who is well trained, someone who really understands their craft. And personally, I will say better you go through a recommendation. Yeah, you need to have someone recommend that diviner to you. Don't go online and say, I've got to this page. This person has beautiful pictures. They must be a good diviner. I'm gonna go. No, you don't know who that person is. Let it be a recommendation. Yeah. I remember the late Credo Mutua when we went to South Africa to film. He was, and a similar question came up, and he's like, when I see these people go to these fanfares and they see this woman and she brings out this card, look, this is more serious than that. Do you understand? So again. And there are people, let me just add that, who can use those cards very well. I'm not, there's no way I'm kind of bringing down any system of divination or even energy work. But the person doing the energy work is who can be the problem. Yeah, so that's the one thing that we need to know. The person who will do that divination is the person that can be the problem. So personally, I'll say go through one that someone has already had a positive experience with and recommends you to go to. Because divination can give you issues that are yet to come up, so you better prepare for them. But then there's also divination that you can do that allows you to reinforce and confirm things. Yes. So again, we cover a lot of that in the Living an African Spiritual Centered Life course, actually, because the same bitter cola we spoke about, you can also use that to divine. Yeah. You can use cowrie shells to divine. When you really get strong in your practice, yeah, you can use even a piece of bone to divine. You can use things like sticks to divine. As your practice gets more complex and more involved, yeah, you can even look and see a signboard, and that'll be a divination for you. Yeah, it will confirm something for you. So yeah, divination it's an essential part of African spiritual practice. Yeah, but again, we have to find out what type of divination are we talking about and what is it for. Yeah. So
okay, wonderful. So firstly, well, would you recommend some? I guess you would, because you just said about divination and you've spoken about it. So
yeah, I can definitely recommend some. I'll just tell the person, please just email us at production@longbelly or ancestralvoices@longbelly.co.uk. It will be posted in the chat soon, or just go to our website and send, because again, you see, going back to what I was telling you, Nosa, about this spiritual journey not just being this straight road of, yeah, I've ended up with people who, and it's not even that these people were not initiated, you know, and I'm not going to mention names because there's no need, but these people had gone and taken knowledge. Africans, blacks like myself, had taken knowledge, come back to the West, and all they had become was a meal ticket, and they forgot about their own character development. And you see, what happens with this knowledge is you can abuse it for a time, but then it will catch up with you. Because you see, when you're doing all these things, as I told you earlier, you're creating an imbalance in the ether. Yeah. And that imbalance, you will have to balance it at some point. So yeah, I've been with people who you might call, you know, be it charlatans, or, you know, not even charlatans, but people who are not really working from the right place within themselves. But you see, again, where my saving grace was is before I even started trying to look for any type of spiritual gurus, I was already doing my ancestral work with my own grandmother. Yeah. So when you start to meet people, you start to like your ancestors will speak to you. Watch out for that one. This person, as I said, this information will come to you. So when I met this particular woman, you know, I went to see her a couple of times, and she was very far away. This was around the 200th centenary anniversary for slavery here in the UK. Yeah, they had an anniversary or a commemoration, and then an African guy by the name of Toyin Agbetu stood up and said, no, you're disrespecting our ancestors. Yeah. You, the same person who killed them off, you can't be commemorating them now like you loved them from before. Yeah. So this is how I even ended up meeting this woman. And then again, I came to find out that she was doing a lot of work all around the UK. For those of us who are based in the UK, and they have it in America too, you'll find that Europeans took a few obelisks from Egypt, yeah, not just over to the UK here, but also in America. Just do some research and find out where these obelisks are, yeah. Because why that's important is you find even here in England, one of them is a place called Cleopatra's Needle. Is by the Thames River, yeah. You see, they brought this obelisk and they didn't take it anywhere. They put it right by the water source. Yeah, all these things are important, and I tell you what, Nosa, yeah, on certain times of the year when there's certain celestial arrangements, when you go down there, you see bankers, people in suits, you know, people you would never think, even think of these things. But then again, the only, should we say, idiot is those who don't know about this knowledge, because everybody else is using it to the advantage except you. You're the dumb one. You're there waiting to say that you're going to die and go to some beautiful place. But the beautiful place is right here. You're in it. And you're missing all of that just to chase a carrot on a stick. Then you deserve to be bamboozled. I'm sorry. We can't live in this day and age and you're you're still gonna believe these type of fairy tale sounding stuff. What is your power? Are you ready to step into that power? Yeah, there's everything in history that has shown you that these folks came and they took our ancestral knowledge and have used it to build the world that we're all now enjoying. Get a piece of that. It's your heritage. Yeah. So let's stop this fear-based living and get into it. As I said, Cleopatra's Needle, go down to the Thames River. I think the closest station is Embankment. You see it there. And they even have a little sphinx in front of it. Yeah. You know, you might wait for a full moon. Just go down there. I'll tell you what, don't even go, if you don't even know what to do, just walk down there on that full moon and just have a look for yourself. Yeah. And then you see that the same people who've been telling you your ancestral knowledge is superstitious, backward nonsense, you will see them there praising your ancestral heritage. Meanwhile, you are waiting for Sunday to go into some church where some good psychologist will feed you good stories. You must be mad. Sorry. Yeah, I didn't need to say that, but it came out. Yeah. So yeah, sorry about that, Nosa.
It's all good. So man, okay, I think that's a mic drop moment, bro. I have to say,
yeah, no worries.
I have to say, which is also, I you know, because what you've been saying right now has been prayer, and you know, has been prayer, has been, you know, energy and power, and I am really grateful for you for coming on today to speak. I definitely, you know, sometime in the future need to speak to you again like this, but it was amazing. Problem. It was amazing, bro.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
You know, thank you for coming on board.
Absolutely.
Is there anything? And firstly, I just want to say, you know, like I, you know, grew up, you know, with a lot of my relatives, you know, people I know, you know, would practice this kind of African spirituality. But there was always this thing where people would be very cautious not to let other people know about it. This is in Nigeria. So for us now to be able to just speak clearly, and for me to speak to people like yourself, just come out and really express what we need to hear is a blessing. So
thank you.
Thank you again, man. Is there anything you want to say, any parting words you want to say to everybody?
Yeah, of course. No, so what's happening with the rise of the Orisha series, man? Because, you know, I just keep my knowledge factual. But what I liked about your rise of the Orisha in particular is your artistic vision that you put to the story, you know, because again, as you said at the very beginning, and we've gone over again, is this idea of you know, that fear in that has been built into our psyche from colonialism, right? You give it a good look, you give it a beautiful look, and that can even change the way people respond to things. So what's going on, brother? Where's the rest of the rise of the Orisha? We've talked about me. The parting words is tell us what's happening with rise of the Orishas. Yeah.
Thank you, bro. It's coming. It's coming soon. I mean, what I did is after the last edition, I took some time off because, you know, like you said, you know, I think I'm very confident in making it look nice and doing all this stuff. But I wanted to make sure that everything I put out in the future has that authenticity and that backing behind it and that energy behind it. And part of these communications have been sort of me learning, but also just, you know, connecting to people who are thinking on that level, who are feeling on that level. So that's really been where I've been at. But at this point in time, I have a series which I'm working on, which I'm planning to shoot in Nigeria as soon as they open up the borders. So I'm going to be flying out to Nigeria to shoot Ogun, Rise of the Orisha.
Okay. Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
That was good, man.
It's a powerful sort of action romance story, but it's based upon one of our ancient stories, but it's sort of an updated tale of it. So that's going to be out here soon, and we've got a few more coming out as well based on the other deities. We've got one for Eshu, we've got one for Oshun, and we're going back to Oya again eventually. So
fantastic. Yeah, man. Well, I'll look forward. And as you say, anytime you need somebody, I guess the academic knowledge just drop me a line. Oh, my phone says 5%. So yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
So yeah, just touch if you need, as you said that. If you want to get, I don't know, yeah, just some kind of authenticity added by certain, maybe if you want to call it academic knowledge, yeah, reach out anytime, man. Yeah.
No, definitely,
So
man. I will take you up on that, brother. Okay.
that's fine.
All right.
Yeah.
You have a
Yeah.
wonderful evening. Yeah.
Okay.
All
Yeah,
right.
man. And thank to everyone for tuning in and staying with us for this long. Yeah. I hope you found it worthwhile.
Yes, thank you, everybody as well for making it a great show. I think it was really, really beautiful to have you and have everybody else here. So, yep.
Mhm.
Take care, yo.
Fantastic.
Good
You too,
night.
brother. Peace.